Hi guys, this is Elizabeth from Alexandria's Private Tuition, and today I thought I'd go through a video that focuses on Lady Macbeth and the oscillating face of ambition. Okay, so in today's lesson, we're going to focus on the three different stages of Lady Macbeth and how she changes. So we're going to be looking at her character arc, so how she goes from being ambitious to doubt and this idea of like ultimate collapse. So let's get into it. Um, the objectives of today's lesson is to trace Lady Macbeth's transformation across the play, analyze how Shakespeare shows her oscillation between strength and fragility, and link her change to the Jacobean ideas about gender, power, and guilt, and ultimately write a paragraph explaining Shakespeare's message. So, key vocab we're going to be looking at today is the word domineering. And as we know, domineering is to be assertive, controlling, or forceful, to seek command of other people, so like wanting to control. So I've got an example sentence that links to Lady Macbeth. It says Lady Macbeth is domineering when she manipulates Macbeth, demanding that he screw his courage to the sticking place. And we know that Lady Macbeth dominates Macbeth as an attempt to kind of like emasculate him and to have his own kind of power. So I've put to write your own sentence using the word domineering to describe Lady Macbeth in Act 1. So if you drop those in the comments below, it'll be really interesting to see what you guys have come up with as well. So secondly, we've got the word oscillate, okay? And when you oscillate, it's to move back and forward, okay? So if you think of like a pendulum that swings, this idea like it's constantly changing, it's never stable. So by Act 3, Lady Macbeth becomes oscillating, caught between triumph and guilt, like she's constantly swinging between the two. So again, if you have a go at using the word oscillating in a sentence, and how her emotions change in the banqueting suite, again, drop your sentences in the comment below and I will be grateful and I can give you some feedback as well. And then our last keyword is fragile. Okay. Now, at the end of the play, Lady Macbeth is presented as quite fragile. Remember, I said we're going to be looking at the three stages of Lady Macbeth. So, fragile means emotionally or mentally weak, easily broken, or disturbed. So, in Act 5, Lady Macbeth is fragile and haunted by guilt as she cries out, "Damned spot." Again, we see her kind of like broken, completely kind of like a shell of her former self. So, again, write your own sentences for me, put it in the comment section, and I will be really happy to see what you've come up with. So now that we've got our three keywords, domineering, oscillating, and fragile, how does that apply to Lady Macbeth throughout the play? Okay, so we can see that the way that her character transforms is from being quite ambitious to being doubtful and this idea of collapse. Okay, so ambition, she hungers for power and rejects femininity. She doubts, so this brings insecurities as she begins to fear what they've done. So after they kill the king and she realizes how Macbeth is behaving towards her, she starts to doubt her place in Macbeth's life. She starts to doubt her place in society. And then ultimately we've got that collapse. So this idea that guilt completely overwhelms her, leading to madness, leading to her committing suicide. Okay. So you can argue and say that this mirrors Shakespeare's warning about unchecked ambition and how it can lead to ruin. But like Shakespeare's not saying that ambition is a bad thing. He's saying that unchecked ambition, ambition that goes beyond the bounds, is a bad thing. It is a dangerous thing, and ultimately it can lead to the collapse of your mental state, even to death. So. We're going to be looking at these two quotes. So we're going to compare the two faces of Lady Macbeth, where it says, "Come, ye spirits that tend on mortal flesh, unsex me here." And then we've got "Out, damn spot, I say out." Now, these two quotes are from separate ends of the play. We've got at the very beginning, Lady Macbeth says she's praying to these evil spirits, yeah? She's very much ready to take on this power, ready to take on authority. And she's like, yeah, unsex me, like take away all my feminine abilities, take away the things that society considers to be quite weak, like completely strip me of these things. And, she's essentially praying to evil spirits, okay? And then when she says out damn spot, we get this idea at the end of the play is when she's trying to erase her guilt. She's trying to erase that kind of like impact it's had on her mentally. So we see two different sides to her. Okay. And the last bullet point, it says, what does this shift suggest about ambition and guilt? Almost this idea that there's a thin line between ambition and there's a thin line between guilt. And if you don't toe that line properly, then ultimately you're going to end up like Lady Macbeth if your ambition is out of bounds. It reminds me of that quote from Macbeth when he says, he only has vaulting of ambition that overleaps itself. So this idea that the ambition has gotten out of control and that ambition forces you into a place of kind of like guilt, ultimately. Okay, so today like I said, we're going to explore how Lady Macbeth oscillates between power and vulnerability. Okay, so just a quick context snapshot. In Jacobean society, women were expected to be obedient and expected to be pure. Lady Macbeth defies these norms by seeking power and rejecting femininity. There's even a part in the play when she's talking to Macbeth and she's emasculating him. She's like, if I had promised you that I would look down on my baby who was milking at my breast, I would pluck my nipple out of its mouth and smash the brains in. Like all of that is her rejecting her femininity to show Macbeth how fiercely devoted she is to him. And then we've got the last bullet point. It says Shakespeare's portrayal of her downfall reinforces social and moral order. So this idea that she's got out of hand, she's had her fun, but the fact that she dies at the end and she has this kind of like mental moment shows that, you can only get so far with unchecked ambition. And her dying is almost kind of like a reset, a kind of like cleansing of everything that she's done. Okay, so the things that I've kind of broken it down, her character arc into three key stages. I would say in Act One, the ambition stage is when she says, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. We can say that there she's being quite domineering, which is our keyword that we learned. Lady Macbeth manipulates Macbeth and hides evil under charm, symbolizing the beginning of her ambitious drive for power. And that's really everything starts off this idea of being two-faced. Then we've got Act Three, where doubt kind seeps in, where it says, "'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy." So at this point, she's changing. She becomes anxious, conflicted, revealing how ambition ultimately turns into insecurity and fear. The fact that she says it's safer to be which we destroy. Like I'd rather be the one that's killed and be like Banquo because the thought of that one day it's going to be me. She's unsure. She's in doubtful joy. Then we've got Act Five, this whole idea of the collapse, that complete collapse of Lady Macbeth, is when she says out damn spot, and this shows that she's quite fragile. Okay, so her guilt consumes her, showing the psychological destruction caused by unchecked ambition. So Shakespeare charts Lady Macbeth's falls from ambition to ruin, showing that moral corruption ultimately destroys the self. So ultimately, like nobody had to do anything. Lady Macbeth's ambition is what destroyed her. Lady Macbeth's kind of like desire and thirst is what ultimately destroys her. Okay, so a question we're going to look at is how does Shakespeare present Lady Macbeth as an oscillating character? Okay, so we're going to use our three keywords. Okay. And our goal is to think about how is she ambitious? How is she seen as doubtful? And this idea of collapse. However, if you want to see what this paragraph looks like, leave a comment below, like and share the video, and I will do another video that kind of sums up what a grade 9 paragraph would look like. Bye.